As far back as 60 years ago, John F. Kennedy said, "Mankind must put an end to war, or war will put an end to mankind." In the last 2 centuries, military research has led to the most significant technological advances, and each country strives to have the most modern and combat-ready weapons to protect its interests. Mankind continues to develop and replenish the arsenal of ever more deadly weapons. For example, the destructive potential of one of these weapons would be enough to destroy our planet. Its force decimates everything in its way. Its power is 58.6 megatons, which is 1,500 times greater than the combined power of nuclear bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This weapon acts with the speed of light. It's impossible to hide or defend oneself from it. Another invention can burn down oxygen and other gases from the air at the explosion site. Even if somebody could survive in its range of action, they would die from lung rupture. And finally, the most devastating theoretically conceivable weapon can cause Hiroshima-like disaster with less than half a gram of matter. Nowadays, the issue of mass destruction weapons is facing people more than ever because the doomsday clock's hand is now the closest to midnight in its entire history. In this video, you'll find out whether Judgment Day can come. Will mankind be able to refute these predictions and make our world safe? Or will it reach the point where the self-destruction of human civilization will become only a matter of technology? How can humanity destroy itself? Would it happen now or in the future? What is more powerful than nuclear weapons? So, let's start with nuclear weapons. They were first tested in July 1945 in the desert near Alamogordo, and as early as August 1945, 2 nuclear bombs were dropped on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which took the lives of 60 to 80,000 people. However, these figures could reach or even exceed 140,000 people, taking into account those who died from cancer and other long-term effects of the explosion. The action of nuclear weapons is based on using the energy released as a result of an uncontrolled chain reaction of heavy nuclei fission of uranium-235 or plutonium-239. The core of one of these substances breaks up into several parts and emits neutrons and a pulse of electromagnetic energy, a gamma ray. The free neutrons released by fission start a chain reaction that releases an enormous amount of energy, producing a powerful explosion, as well as light and radioactive radiation that kills all life. Traditionally, nuclear weapons are divided by power into 5 groups. Ultra small, less than 1 kiloton, used in tactical nuclear weapons. Small, 1 to 10 kilotons. Medium, 10 to 100 kilotons. This group includes the bombs dropped on Hiroshima, 18 kilotons, and Nagasaki, 21 kilotons. Large, high power, from 100 kilotons to 1 megaton. Super large, super high power, over 1 megaton. And 1 megaton equals 1,000 kilotons. Today, 9 countries have nuclear weapons in their arsenals, and the total number of strategic warheads alone is 12,705 units, apart from tactical nuclear weapons, which are difficult to count and can be roughly equal to the mass of strategic warheads. 1 nuclear warhead can destroy a city with a population of 1 million people. But in case of mass use, the environmental radiation pollution is even more dangerous, making the life of people who survived a nuclear war almost impossible. Is there something stronger and scarier? Yes, there is. And this is a thermonuclear weapon, based on the principle of an enhanced nuclear explosion which combines light atomic nuclei into heavier ones due to the kinetic energy of their thermal motion, significantly increasing the mass of heavy nuclei for neutrons' fission and ejection, as well as a pulse of gamma-ray radiation than in conventional nuclear fission, where light atomic nuclei don't take part in fission. A thermonuclear reaction, similar to the one that occurs in stars, releases an incredible flow of energy. It is a much more efficient source of energy than a nuclear one. Moreover, given some design improvement, it can potentially make a thermonuclear explosive device as powerful as you want. That is, it has no physical power limit, which means that, theoretically speaking, even a single thermonuclear explosive device can destroy our planet. So far, such a charge hasn't yet been created, but even the one that was tested once in our history gives us an idea of how destructive this weapon can be. We're talking about the Tsar Bomba, a thermonuclear bomb tested by the Soviet Union in 1961. It's the most physically powerful device ever used on Earth, the most powerful thermonuclear bomb ever tested, and the largest man-made explosion in human history. The Tsar Bomba was tested at a military training ground on the remote island of Novaya Zemlya in the Arctic. However, the flash of the explosion could be seen at a distance of more than 1,000 kilometers. It was observed in Norway, Greenland, and even Alaska. Windows shattered 780 kilometers from the explosion site in a village on the Soviet island of Dixon. A blast wave circled the globe 3 times, and a seismic wave was recorded 3 times in New Zealand, on the other side of the globe. A nuclear mushroom explosion was 67 kilometers high and had a 95-kilometer diameter. The power of the explosion was 58.6 megatons of TNT, which is 1,500 times more than the combined power of nuclear explosions in the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And this is taking into account that the original plan to create and test a 100-megaton version of the bomb was rejected by Soviet military scientists due to the extreme radioactive contamination that this thermonuclear reaction would cause. Thermonuclear explosion power from 1 to 1,000 megatons. 1 megaton is 27 times more powerful than the combined yield of 2 nuclear bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. 58.6 megatons, the power of the Tsar Bomba, is 1,582 times the combined power of these bombs. However, it's technically feasible to create a thermonuclear charge with up to 1,000 megaton capacity. That is, 20 times more powerful than the Tsar Bomba. It can be shortly implemented if there is a political decision and funding both in Russia and the United States, which are leading developers and manufacturers of this type of weapon. And this is considering the fact that thermonuclear weapons are currently in the arsenal of 6 countries, including North Korea. It's better not to think about the consequences of such a thermonuclear explosion. However, this isn't enough for people. They continue to develop and improve other types of weapons that today are not as destructive as nuclear and thermonuclear ones, but given the rapid technological advances, can become such weapons in the coming decades. Combat lasers are one of these weapons. These are powerful energy beams that travel in straight lines through air or space. They move at the speed of light and can strike at a distance of thousands of kilometers, burning not only specific objects, but in the future, even entire territories. Their operation principle is simpler and much cheaper than that of thermonuclear reaction. Special mirrors focus powerful laser beams on the target, and the generated heat burns its surface, disrupting flight, disabling warheads, and igniting fuel or explosives. This is how they operate today, serving primarily to protect against missiles and aircraft. Their main advantage is acting at the speed of light, which is why it's almost impossible to protect oneself from them. Such a beam cannot be intercepted like a rocket, and just like with a rocket, it is impossible to run away from it, move to another place or shelter, as there is no time. Combat lasers have only two problems that don't yet allow them to become a more formidable weapon than nuclear weapons. The straightforward action, when the beam travels only in a straight line and can only hit objects within the line of sight, and high power consumption, which doesn't allow placing powerful lasers, for example, in space, from where they could hit any target in any area at the speed of light. But if people create laser beams with low power consumption, or invent devices that can accumulate large amounts of energy, for example from solar radiation, combat lasers can become the #1 weapon in the fight for global dominance. In the past few years, there has been increasing coverage of thermobaric weapons, or vacuum bombs, in the news. They are a type of two-stage munition that creates huge explosions, deadly for all living things. The first explosive charge, fired as a rocket or artillery missile, spreads an aerosol similar to gasoline fumes over the area. The second charge ignites the aerosol mist, creating a massive explosion, flames, a large pressure wave, and a vacuum as oxygen and other gases from the surrounding air are burned out by the explosion. Even if a person who finds themselves in the affected area with such a weapon survives, hiding from the flames of the explosion and the shockwave, they would die from the lung rupture due to the vacuum occurring in the affected area. So far, these weapons are reserved for local conflicts, and their power is insignificant compared to nuclear and thermonuclear weapons. However, many military experts consider the thermobaric weapon technology very promising for creating mass destruction weapons, which means that it will develop, and one day, perhaps, lead humanity to its end. Speaking about the existing types of weapons, one can't help but mention neutron weapons, which existed until recently as neutron bombs and neutron guns. The neutron charge is structurally a two-stage, low-yield thermonuclear charge, in which a stream of neutrons emitted by a nuclear fusion reaction is deliberately released from the neutron bomb and not absorbed by the inner shell material of the bomb's body. That is, the neutron bomb's main destructive power is not the explosion's high temperature and the destructive shockwave, as in nuclear and thermonuclear weapons, but only radioactive radiation. A powerful stream of fast neutrons penetrates barriers much stronger than X-ray or gamma radiation of a nuclear explosion, which enables neutron weapons to destroy enemy manpower at a considerable distance from the explosion epicenter and in armored vehicles, reliably protected against the destructive factors of a conventional nuclear explosion. A neutron gun is a subtype of a neutron weapon. Structurally, it is a generator of directed high-energy neutron beams. In other words, a pulsed nuclear reactor. The neutron gun was designed for missile defense purposes. The power of developed and existing neutron bombs is from 1 to 10 kilotons. Fortunately, neutron weapons became widespread only in the 60s to 70s of the last century, when these weapons were actively developed and tested. Most of the projects for developing neutron weapons were put on hold in 1991, when the President of Russia and the United States signed an obligation to completely destroy neutron warheads. But who knows if this weapon will be in demand again in the future, with the development of some technology that makes it even more powerful and relevant again. But one of the most realistic apocalyptic scenarios lies in biological weapons. Despite the prohibitions and control of the global community, actively developed by many countries. We all experienced a small rehearsal of such an apocalyptic event quite recently during the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite the fact that there is no officially confirmed evidence suggesting that the most famous virus of recent years was man-made, as well as that humanity was deliberately infected with this virus, there are many rumors and conspiracy theories on this subject. They are easy to believe, since countries are very reluctant to disclose information, and many of their actions seem to be specifically designed to fuel rumors. However, even the official version that people aren't involved in the spread of COVID-19 only proves the risk of a biological apocalypse. After all, deadly viruses exist in laboratories, which means that they can be released and infect humans. Numerous films and series of recent years depict similar scenarios, even though they are fiction. And it's a well-known fact that science fiction often becomes a reality. In fact, the ideas of sci-fi writers may look a little different than in books and films, but a lot of what seemed like science fiction to people 100 or even 50 years ago is now part of our life. As always, we've saved the best for last. This is the story about the most terrible theoretically conceived weapon. Fortunately, it hasn't yet been created, but a substance with immense destructive potential is not an invention of science fiction writers. Its existence has been actually proven. Microscopic doses of this substance can cause much greater destruction than the aftermath of the most powerful nuclear explosions. To repeat the Hiroshima disaster, it would be enough to use less than half a gram of this substance, and 1.5 kilograms would be enough to recreate the testing of the Tsar Bomba on the Novaya Zemlya archipelago in 1961. What is this substance? This substance is called antimatter, and it has already been created in scientific labs. The advantage of antimatter in the creation of mass destruction weapons lies in producing an enormous amount of energy when colliding with regular matter. 1/2 gram of antimatter reacting with 1/2 gram of ordinary matter gives the energy of 21.5 kilotons of TNT, the same as the atomic bomb dropped on Nagasaki in 1945. The theoretically conceivable power of antimatter weapons ranges from 1 megaton to infinity. Thus, an antimatter weapon is a theoretically plausible device that uses antimatter as a source of energy, fuel, or explosives. The only consolation is that at the moment, it is the most expensive substance on Earth. Antimatter is obtained at the Large Hadron Collider, which so far is only reserved for research and is not used for military purposes. The antimatter production process is valued at $6 billion per 100 nanograms, which is 100 millionth of a gram. That is, the amount of antimatter formed is very small, and modern technologies are experiencing great difficulties with storing the antimatter, which annihilates when it comes into contact with ordinary matter. Nonetheless, until recently, the word antimatter was exclusively used in science fiction, and today it's a reality. Science and technology are developing more and more rapidly, and no one can say for sure that in 20 or 50 years the production of antimatter won't become a common, inexpensive process, and that it won't be mass-produced. Perhaps creating such technology will be the last drop that would push human civilization over the edge of self-destruction. Unless, of course, humanity destroys itself earlier with the existing weapons. After all, if all nuclear bombs are blown up, they won't be as powerful as antimatter weapons, but life on Earth will become impossible even for those few who manage to survive. the planet will turn into a lifeless radioactive desert.